Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Her Side of the Ruck. I'm Tash,
I'm Bernice.
and we're not pundits.
We're just two women who know what a ruck is.
Well, on today's episode, we're going to be doing something a little bit different, talking about rugby, but not specifically rugby that's unfolded per se. When we launched the channel in May 2025, we were just two women who love rugby, weren't we, Denise? And still are.
Yeah, two women who know what a ruck is.
Yeah. So I think as well, like her side of the ruck came from a South African and an English woman wanting to share their love of rugby and also unite our knowledge about what rugby there is on offer for people to watch. And it's so great for so many of you to be following our channel, engaging with our content. So thank you so much for being with us and watching this episode too. But we have some really, really exciting news to share with you. And I'm going to let Bernice break it out.
Yeah, so as Tasha mentioned, this is not your regular episode. Of course, we'll be talking about all things rugby, but this is a very special episode. So since we've launched the pod, we have been in talks with a brand that really aligns with what Tash and I present, which is England versus not England versus South Africa, but the Southern Hemisphere versus the Northern Hemisphere hype. So yeah, we are very excited to announce that we have officially partnered with Hook and Flanker, who is a very special brand and a brand that really aligns with what Tash and I also want to put out there, not just Tash and I, but also her side of the rack. And I think Tash, you definitely share my sentiment on the excitement.
100%. And on today's episode, we have the founder of Hook and Flanker, Brad, here to talk to us about his journey into rugby, why he started Hook and Flanker, and why he thought Her Side of the Ruck was the perfect partner. So let's get into our conversation.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I'm very
Hey,
excited to be here.
Brad. Thanks for being here.
Yay!
Welcome, partner. I suppose we can officially say
Yeah,
that now. Great to
That's
have
yeah,
it.
you.
It's been a
basically.
been a long hidden secret for the last few months, hasn't it?
Yes. There's been a few hints
Crazy.
here and there. But yeah, this has just been something we've been in conversations with probably since like July, August. And it's amazing to say that we finally got this off the ground.
Exactly. And I think, especially those conversations that we have been having, just to make sure that this isn't just a brand partnership, but it's more than that. It's a bit of a synergy between what you guys bring to the table and, the sort of community that we're trying to build here at Hook and Flanker.
And Brad, you were born in South Africa, but you've spent a lot of your life in England, two big nations that absolutely love their rugby. So tell us a little bit about your journey into the sport and how Hook and Flanker came about as a brand.
So a real brief history. I born and bred South Africa, so born in Joburg, lived in Durban for most of the time that we were out there. I've lived in England for too many years now, so I'm more of a Brit than I'm a Bok these days. But yeah, so I moved over. A funny little story I love is when we first moved over here, I landed in the UK in full Sharks gear. So Bernice, it's a little link to you there. But determined to bring that South African spirit over. And yeah, I guess for me, rugby is such a huge part of my life. It's what
Mm.
connected me to, who I grew up with as a kid in South Africa, and it's how I bonded with, sort of new friends at school, and going all the way from kindergarten up to university level. It's always been quite a prevalent theme in my life there.
I think that's what rugby's been for both of us as well. Like, I've never played. I went down to the rugby as a way of spending time with my dad, and then it's kind of extended to the whole family.
And I think that's sort of the key thing, that rugby is such a sport that ties people together. I often get asked the question
Mm.
of, why do you think rugby's better than football? That's probably a whole different
It's an
kettle of fish
easy
that we don't get
question.
into. But it's the community side of it. It's you just don't get that in any other sport.
Mm. Yeah, 100%. Like the community, is something that we've experienced on as an online and I suppose a digital. We've got this great community of Her Side the Ruck. You've got a great community through Hook and Flanker. Like you reshare quite a lot of content of people who wear your fleeces and other items that you produce. And we've all probably also felt the community of rugby when we've been at rugby matches together with people who we've met. It doesn't matter if they're wearing the opposition's jersey. There might be a bit of tit for tat, but there's always that unity, even if you are supporting a different team. And that is something so unique to this sport and something that I think we all hold very dearly in our hearts.
100%. I think, if you don't mind me sort of steering this in the way of where we start Hook and Flanker, and you've got to stop me if I monologue here because I'm nothing if not a yapper. But
Go on,
it's
tell us,
what brought
Brad.
me
Tell us
to
all.
starting. So yeah, so the a really fortunate bit of timing is today's actually my 4-year anniversary since I first bought the web domain hookandflanker.co.uk, and that's a quite a big benchmark. I believe most businesses don't make it past their third and fourth year, so that's
Yeah.
it's a really great starting point.
Yeah, oh, 100%. I think it's hard work to get something off the ground. I think we can definitely say that. There was a lot of we had a lot of conversations about what our graphics are going to look like, what we wanted to
Oh,
talk about, getting the episodes out, all the technical
yeah,
side of stuff. The trip to Cape Town, I think we planned that like 4 or 5 months out in advance, didn't we, Bernice? And you planned all the itinerary, you found the
literally.
place for us to stay. So yeah, with all these things, there's a lot of planning involved, but it's so worth it when it comes off, you know.
And I think especially with your guys' sort of side of things, from my end, it was always just a man of one organizer business. You don't have to think about how you two mesh together, just those base kind of conversations. So it's really interesting to see what you guys have been able to bond together. And I think that's a really sort of strong chemistry that comes across in your content. And to be honest, it's mainly what brought me together, the synergy of those two teams, of the two nations working in tandem, bringing both sides of the sport. If as someone who found your content on social media, it's what stopped and made me stay on.
Brad, you mentioned Hook and Flank and how you started the business and it's the 4-year anniversary now. But how did you get to the point of deciding, okay, because we all know there's a fine line between rugby as a passion and actually trying to get revenue out of it, or even just turning it into, for example, something Tash and I had done with the podcast, like something a little bit more, something that we can make our baby and share our love of rugby with. So how did you kind of get to the point of deciding that, okay, you want to do more with rugby than just, being a supporter?
What a great question that is. So I think the best way I can answer it is to go off on a mini tangent about sort of how I started the company. So, I'd just finished coming off the back of my uni degree. I'd done a business degree down at Bournemouth, and I was stuck, as many of us are, in a bit of a rut afterwards. And I found myself just spending my entire life watching rugby, absolved into rugby, thinking, what really comes next for me here. And I absolutely loved wearing my kit everywhere. I wear my shirts in any place that I can. But what I quickly noticed was that there wasn't really any clothing where you could show that you were a football fan. While you're a football fan, that's a Freudian slip, but you can really show that you're a rugby fan without looking like you're wearing the full kit. So for me, I thought that there has to be something out here. I did a little bit of research and thought nobody's doing this. So I thought I can do that. Let's bring something in here. So I'm wearing the original first ever fleece that I made, which is the Founders Edition fleece, and it came from the two positions that I switched between. So hooker and flanker. Hooker when we've eaten a bit too much over the Christmas period, and flanker when we're in a little bit of a leaner shape. And it starts from a place of passion. It was never meant to be a business in the start. It was kind of a bit of a side project just to make some cool clothing. And I think something that I really loved was that, especially in the early days, I think the first 2 years, I sold all the clothing for the exact cost that it cost me, because I had no interest in the monetary side of it. I was just so excited to be building up, a cool brand. We were connecting with more rugby fans. It was awesome just seeing people wearing this fleece. And I think the thing that was coolest to me about it is that I often get asked a lot about the color choice, with it being dark to light, that you can't really tell what it says. And that was intentional, because I love the idea that to anybody on the street that doesn't know rugby, you just think it's a nice fleece. It's, a quarter zip. But to another rugby fan, you could be in a cafe, you could be on a dog walk, you see someone else wearing it and you immediately have a connection to talk about. And I really know when I make a product that really resonates with my brand, when I can wear it to a setting. A perfect example is my last MOT. I wore my Nations fleece, and the mechanic there started talking about Six Nations and who are you supporting, who do you want to watch. And for me, I just know that that's exactly why I started it, to have those conversations, to build that community. It's just been the forefront of why I started the company.
I want to know, Brad, who is your favorite England player and who's your favorite South African player? And who
Good
do you
question.
support when you watch England versus the Springboks? I really want to know that.
So
I think
good
I know the answer
questions.
to that.
So my all-time favorite player is Ebenet Smith. So he's actually who I modeled the hook and flanker rugby man off, which is quite a cool little link.
Oh,
My
wow.
second would
Wow.
be Faf, but obviously we're going for one of each. And I've got to say that my favorite England player at the moment is actually Henry Arundel. I think he's such
Mm,
an unappreciated talent. I'm so glad to see him back
Good
in,
choice.
English colours.
mm.
And I'm just really excited about the future of his career. Now, when it comes to watching, well, I guess two questions there. When it comes to watching international games, it's a tough spot to be in because I watch more Premiership rugby than I do URC rugby, especially this last year. And I find myself to be more of a Bath man. It's just close to where I live. It's a team I grew up nearby, and also they tend to have a fair whack of South Africans in the squad. And so it's always tough watching these international games because you've got players that are on my Bath team, but then they're against players on my home team. Now, the short answer to that is it's always a box. It's there's a reason we are the number one team in the world, and even if we're not, they're still the best in my heart.
Just a bit more about like how the brand's evolved and the type of people you work with. You work with quite a lot of young creators, also a lot of grassroots clubs as well. Can you talk to me a bit more about the passion for grassroots rugby as well as trying to promote the professional side of the game?
When I really looked at the brands out there, I really feel that there's, in my opinion, too much emphasis on the elite end of the game. It's
Mm,
I understand that, and I think that's quite above across the board with especially English rugby at the moment that there's too much emphasis on international games and the high end level. And as someone who I've grown up around Somerset and Devon, we are that to me is in England the heart of rugby.
big
We
rugby
love our
country.
grassroots. We it's what we're sort of brought up with. And to me, when I think about rugby, I don't think about those international games. I don't think about our sevens games. To me, it's the you know a group of lads ranging from 17-year-olds to 50-year-old blokes that run you over like a steam train, and that is what rugby is to me. And I really believe that what my sort of ethos is in hook and flanker is that without grassroots rugby is nothing, and that makes
Mm,
sense on so many levels. If we don't support our grassroots, those players aren't going into academies. They're not getting fed into the international game. And
100%.
that's across the board. Especially we've spoken a lot, sort of person to person, about the situation with women's rugby, and now that the international game is bringing so much attention to that side of the sport, we're
Mm,
starting to see some more funding. We're seeing a lot more interest going into the grassroots level of the game,
Mm.
and I think that to me that's an area that if we neglect, we could see the complete drop off of rugby in England. And I think for me, as a bit of a side project, and this is me being the ever optimist. I think a long term goal of mine is that I want to be a brand that not only supports grassroots rugby, but I want to sort of move the brand into a position where we can actually give back to grassroots. That whether that's I don't know how we do that yet. That's part of a sort of 5-year plan, but that's really where I see the business going, and it's what my core ethos is when it comes to bringing our products. It would be so easy to even if we're talking from a price point here, it'd be so easy to stick £100 price point on a product and call it a day. And
mm,
a lot of brands make a lot of money that way. And I certainly would have made a lot more money too if I'd done that myself. But what I really believe in is that I really want to bring, high quality gear that you can, like these, you can train, you can play rugby in them, you can wear them for a dog walk, but you can
mm.
also wear it in a work setting. You can wear it on a date at the pub, whatever you want to do. And I love the fact that as we've been able to grow, we've been able to bring things in house and make things a lot more streamlined and efficient. I've been able to bring the cost of products down and make it more accessible to people, so you can have a premium product at more of an affordable price.
I discovered your brand from social media, and I'm always getting a bit stuck to what to get my dad for birthday and Christmas. And he's got a mid-November birthday, and then Christmas is like 6 weeks later, and I'm like, what do I get him? My story from rugby is a big part of my relationship with him. So when I saw your brand and I saw your fleece, I was like, oh, I do love a good fleece. Why not? Let's give it a try. And he loved it. He loved it. I got the Navy Founders edition, and he wears it all the time, wears it to walk the dog, wears it to go to the gym, wears it
Shame.
sitting rugby if he wants to, which is great. So I had to get my hands on the Nations fleece. So I've got the black Nations fleece, and the number of compliments I get on it is crazy, whether it's I wear it at work when I work in a rugby club environment, or I'm going to the gym, or my sport is badminton, just going down to hit some shuttles on a court. That's the fleece that I'm wearing. Easy to wash, easy to dry, easy to wear. Like when you're super busy, that's the kind of stuff you want. Like I iron far too much stuff. Like, so something that I can wear that's easy to put on, it's comfy, it
Yeah.
looks nice, it's perfect. And that was another thing. Like, I'm not being funny. I think me and Bernice can both say we like our clothes.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing as well about it is you've started shipping internationally. And I think the nice thing is, especially with South Africa, like we obviously have a lot of warmer summers and generally it's just a bit warmer here. So it's nice that you have the options of fleeces as well as t-shirts. So yeah, I think that's also very nice.
Yeah, and I think we were sort of talking about this before. One thing it's a really selfish reason for me, but it's something I'm really excited about to work with you guys, is that because I've lived in England so long, I've got a very British accent. I'm well ingrained here. A lot of people don't know that I'm South African. They don't know about the roots of the company, and I've got a huge South African family. It's really exciting for me to be able to not only have success over in England, but to start to bring that over to the areas I grew up, to work with players that, we had a brand ambassador recently who's a former Shark and plays for Gloucester now. And just being able to have that link there. And it brings back the little kid in you that you can say to, your uncles and say, look who I'm working with now and what we're doing here.
Mm.
And, it's super exciting to be bringing that back. And, we talk about the Nations Fleece. Something that I'm so excited about is our new, the Nations Tournament, or I think Nations Championship, it's called, that's coming up in July. And that has our Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere teams. And that's just been such a gift landing in my lap with our nation's design, that we can have that, the Northern design and the Southern design. And it just really ties in nicely to where I want to take Hook and Flanker. And especially international shipping, I was blown away with. I think you got to bear in mind, about this time a year ago or 14 months ago, this was a tiny operation. It was, we're talking 5-10 orders a week. It was something I could do on a Saturday. It was really chill, really easy. I had a full-time job doing it. And in the last, year, 14 months, really, it has just gone from a point, I think we had a day where we did 400 orders, which is just mind-blowing, And even international shipping, we opened international shipping, I think, sort of mid-December, which was risky around Christmas. And we had something like 40, 50 international orders. And we've got people in, we had some New Zealanders, we had some, all over the shop then. It's so cool being able to see, what to me is still a passion project. And, I'm very fortunate I get to get paid to do it now. But it's so cool to see so many people out there wearing the brand and to know, I mean, a fun fact that I absolutely love, and I've got to be careful on the phrasing of this one, is that I have a order in every UK post area. I don't think it's postcode, it's post area in the UK, which is just absolutely mental. So no matter where you go in the UK, somebody there has a fleece. And I think I just love the fact that we're not just an English company anymore. We are expanding. We're on the way to take over.
I think what can I give some context to some parts of the UK? They're very difficult to get to. Like right up north in the highest parts of Scotland are very difficult to get to. Like you're in the middle of nowhere. There's not a lot going around there. Beautiful landscapes, but yeah, to get deliveries is not necessarily the easiest thing. So I think that in itself is impressive. I would also like to flip something that you said there. You say you're fortunate to be in the position you are now. I'd like to say it's hard work and passion that's got to where you are now rather than being fortunate. Yeah, maybe like how it's boomed on social, but there's a reason for that. So I think that's something. I don't want to say life is about luck. Sometimes it is getting your foot in the door or learning something or meeting the right person, stumbling across them. But I think, I don't know. I don't want to get all spiritual, but I think things happen for a reason, like written in the stars, million miles away. No, no, no. But I just think like when you do really work hard for stuff and it pays off, like it's such a great feeling.
And I think that's something that, I don't want to be blowing my own trumpet here, as the phrase goes, but, something that I think for a good few years where, I've had some tough periods of the business. We had some times where, because we weren't advertising that it was, I wasn't making profit out of this. I was doing it just for the love of it. The second you get any negative feedback or you have slow deliveries or anything like that, it's tough because you sort of sit there and you go, well, I'm not a business. I'm doing this as a hobby there. And I think where it came to a really a real make or break moment for me was July this year, and sort of probably starting the same time last year. I was working my 9 to 5, which is probably more like a 9 to 8, and I was coming home, and the business was just the demands were ramping up. And to be honest, I was in a bit of a phase where I just felt like I was half-assing both businesses. You can't put your
Mm,
full effort into your day job because you're working late nights, and you can't put full effort into this business that's shooting off because you've got what pays the bills. And it was a really tough decision. And I'm fortunate enough to have spoken to some other amazing rugby creators, some other guys that have got some awesome brands up there. And from talking to them all, they just said that you have to take the risk. You have to make the leap and see what happens. That was a tough call because you go from I've worked my whole life to get a solid career.
mm.
Not that I've thrown that away, but it's a crazy thing to do in your late 20s. And it's been such an exciting journey. I mean, even from the sort of back end of things, where 7 months ago, 8 months ago, I'd never touched a sewing machine. And now I make everything here myself, and we've got our amazing team that we're growing. But just the skill level from having to go from I've never touched one before to all of a sudden we're shipping 50, 100 parcels to Timbuktu,
Mm.
And I think so. And I have gone slightly off tangent there, but to bring it back to your point, I think what has really benefited me and what I'm most proud about with the business is that I haven't built it to get rich quick. I haven't built it to do anything. And every decision I make with the business, I have a bit of an argument with my customer support team here because my ethos is quality over everything. And as brutal as it sounds, you're coming to me for a fantastic product. Everything else is second nature. And obviously, as we're growing into more of a professional business, we have standards that we want to meet. But I don't believe that we should cut costs. I don't believe even moving operations abroad. I know that you can take things other places and make it cheaper, but I think that really loses the heart of what makes my company so such a thing to be proud of. So yeah, and that has come from years of just plugging away, doing what feels correct with the choices. Like take our Nations fleece. I got one hovering behind me. The first supplier I went to with that one, I think just the cost of embroidery, they quoted me about £30 per fleece, because it's ridiculous. It's something silly like 150 foot of thread. It's like 45 minutes on a machine. It's not efficient at all. It's expensive to run, and
Yeah.
it breaks through needles like you wouldn't believe. But I didn't want to cut back on quality. I didn't want to cut back on what I think is a really cool design. And as a benefit of that, even through some crazy periods, we don't have any issues with product quality. To be honest, it's more often a case of more demand than supply. And I just love it. I think the thing that really makes me happiest is the fact that I'm in love with the process at the moment. I love the exciting elements of the brand. I love getting orders out to people and seeing customers wearing my stuff and being able to know that that's a fleece that you can have in your cupboard for the next 10, 15 years. It's those things that make me happy. And the fact that it can pay the bills and can keep me doing what I love, I think is and most importantly, it can provide opportunities like working with you guys. It's so exciting.
It's clear to see the passion when you talk about this, and whether it's on your face or it's in the tone of your voice, how much this means to you and how much you've built it from just an idea that you had to something that has a very clear reality that has impacted people's lives. And I have to emphasize embroidery over putting something plasticky on the side of the arm. I've had too many rugby jerseys now where plastic's just like peeled off
Yeah.
because it's been in the washer too many times. My favorite jerseys are the ones that have the stitched logo in, or they have the stitched title sponsor in, not the ones that peel off. Like I remember I had a Tigers jersey. I quite liked it, the dark green one, but I think it was when Tops Tiles, one of the sponsors that's no longer with Leicester anymore, as the main one, and then the T started to peel off, and it's just like I don't want Ops Isles on my on my shirt. You know what I mean? And I think it's when we had STHL, I think they do like the wind blowers. They had an orange one. I think it was on the one of the late teen jerseys. Again, love the color. It was like the dark green with the dark red. Love the crest. But then the orange, not against this because orange is not my favorite colors. It started to peel off and it looks all like scraggly. And
Yeah.
so just you don't find many companies now who decide to go time and quality over quick cost, quick wins. And that's something that stood out for me as why we wanted to work with you as well, because I love your products and I love what you
Oh,
stand
thank you.
for and the effort that you put in. So it's a two-way streak. And I think a lot of people just think partnerships are just about throwing money here and there, or oh, I'd like my name on this. But this partnership is a lot more to us. It's a passion project. Like Her Side of the Ruck is a passion project for us. Hook and Flanker is a passion project for you, Brad. And the fact that we can be united by our countries, you two by your clubs, and our love for rugby, I think is such a unique and special thing, particularly to this sport.
We said this earlier, so at the risk of repeating myself, that what I really came across to me, it was really apparent when I first came across you guys on social media, was the passion behind the sport. It was the breadth and the depth of your ball knowledge. I'm sat there watching videos going like, damn, I've walked away learning something here, or that's a really interesting insight. And I think, especially when I first came across the videos, I thought, yes, these guys are a huge platform. And, I just think that being able to be part of your journey, especially, while I have been doing this for 4 years, I'm still really 6 months as a small business doing it myself. And, being able to have both of our brands at a beginning point, I'm just so excited about where things can go to, develop things forward. And, especially as a sponsor, it's not something I've done before. I've sponsored loads of different teams, which has been fantastic, but just being able to have my name, we do talk about putting your name on things, and, as a selfish reason, it's flipping awesome being able to see, my name partnered up with you guys, and to be able to, show off to my audience, hey, here's something that we're working on, and to be able to bring that passion that you guys have across into my brand, and I think that's probably why it's taken us 4 or 5 months of just getting to know each other, building up a bit of a relationship first, especially Bernice with you over an essay. It's making sure that we all are on the same lines and it's not just a corporate sellout,
100%. I think one thing we've all spoken about is relationships are everything, particularly with sport. And we've been very grateful that we've had the platforms to be able to make these relationships. Like, look, I have one of my best friends in Bernice that I didn't have 12 months ago. How amazing is that for a story of how this sport connects people? It connects people. We've got Kiwis who actively comment on this channel, and they're thousand miles away from where we both are. And we've got other people from like the US. We had a lot of engagement from the United States during the Women's Rugby World Cup because of the growth of the sport over there. And it's amazing that we've got a national engagement in South Africa and England, but also just all over the world. And this is a really special community. And so a big thank you to everybody who's got to this point in the episode. Thank you so much for listening to our conversation. Also, I hope you gained a lot of insight about Brad, Hook and Flanker and the brand and our partnership going forward. We can offer you a discount, 20%, if you use the code Her Side of the Ruck. All caps, Brad? I think we decided all caps.
That's the one, yeah.
All caps, Her Side of the Ruck. I'll pop it in the description down below if you want to use it. That applies to any of the items on Hook and Flanker's website. So feel free to grab yourself some stash. We'd love to let us know. Send us some pics. Comment on our socials and stuff if you did get anything. Tag Hook and Flanker. Brad would also love to see you in his gear. But yeah. What a great conversation. Thank you so much, Brad, for coming on the show and being part of this official partnership launch.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brad. It's been amazing.
And yeah, thank you so much for having me on. This has been my first experience of being on a podcast, so hopefully it hasn't come across too awkward or too yappy from my end.
Shush. It's been amazing to have you hear more about your story, and we can't wait to see where this partnership goes forward for both sides and both parties. So we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for watching another episode of Her Side of the Ruck. Thank you, Brad, for coming on the channel. We're going to sign off. Brad, you go first. Sign off.
What is the sign off?
Sign off from Brad in the UK or England, whatever you want to do. There you go.
We're out from Devon. We're out.
Boom. Signing off from Tash in West London.
Signing off is me, Bernice from SA.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.